Hi class, we're getting really close to being done. Um, when we first started, I used Visio to create UML diagrams to get us on track for how we wanted to create our classes and allocate things out. Once we start actually developing, we can use Visual Studio to generate those diagrams for us. They're not exactly the same as what we would do manually, but they give us a lot of information. Depends on the company you work for as to whether you have to do any sort of manual UML documentation. But it was good for us to get started with our design. I'm looking at the class diagram that we created earlier that just included our load class. If you can't find it, just right click on one of your .cs files and choose View Class Diagram. Now, every time you choose View Class Diagram, it's going to make a new one, a new class diagram in your project. So I just went to this one that was already in my project to access it. Now, I'd like to add our form class, FRM load, to this class diagram so that I can have a visual of all of the different methods that we have, because we know we have created quite a few. So if I look at Solution Explorer, I can just grab that .cs file and drag it onto my class diagram, and then I can expand it and see what it has. And indeed, it is quite large. We've created a really interesting, nice system here. We can see all of our fields that are our form fields, and then our methods that we have created. And we've tried to name things in such a way that groups are staying together. It's working out pretty well. We look like we're in pretty good shape. We can see that our class variables, our class fields, are a little bit bolder, a little bit darker than our private form fields. So we have some differences there. We also could look at our class, of course, in the class details screen if we wanted to, and see even additional information. All right, so don't forget we have that documentation available if it feels like you're missing something or not sure where to go. When you're looking at this documentation, if I want to go to the file open method, I can just double click it on that class diagram and it will take me straight to that method in the code. Now, interesting, I don't necessarily want to use the file open method, but I would like to create our file save as method. So in our save as, we're going to use that common control file save. Let's go look at our form. Now, I don't actually have those controls on our form yet, so I'm going to find them. I want the save file dialog, and I know that I'm going to want the open file dialog. So I'll go ahead and just put both of those on our form. Now in our save file dialog, if we take a look at our properties there, we should be able to change our title to something that's meaningful to us. So let's make it be gravel load file save. And then for our open, I'd like it to say something nice like that too. We'll say gravel load file open. Now, there are going to be some other things that we'd like to do with these file dialogs. We're just barely getting started. But I want to go to our code. Now that we have these components added to our form, we can access them in our code. And so in our Save As dialog, let's display our Save As dialog. Now, this is weird, right? Because I use the Save dialog, but I'm working with the Save As menu function. Well, that's because when they choose save as, we want them to choose a new file name because they're saying they want to save it as something different than it currently is. So we could display that save dialog. Remember, that's how we just show it. That works good. Then how could we tell what they clicked? We could say if save file dialog dot do we want file OK? No. Want something about what key they pressed. And I'm not exactly remembering what that code is. So let's see if we can find something. I'll search C# save dialog cancel button. What if they clicked me? How do I know? We have a lot of options here. I'm trying to decide which one I would like to look at. How about we'll look at .NET Pearls real quick and see what they say. They just show it. We would like to make sure that somebody didn't click cancel. I'll go to Stack Overflow, yuck. How do I tell if my save dialog result equals dialog result.ok? That's what I need. Why is it not giving it to us? Seems like that should work. My save dialog result. Oh, this is a little different, isn't it? So what they do here is say, if when we show that dialog, we can check that dialog result, or we could create an instance of that save dialog and use it. So we always have lots of options. Let's embed those within our if. So not liking me. Just doing it wrong. All right, so it likes that. Okay, we're saying we're going to show that dialog, and the dialog is named save file dialog 1. When we get done, if it returns a dialog result of OK, we know that we have a good file name. So we can update our class variable file name to be the file name that they just picked. We could have, of course, done that without even checking to see if they clicked cancel or OK, but that wouldn't be very nice of us, would it? Because if they click to cancel, we wouldn't know. Now, once we've got this file name set, I think we're going to go ahead and run a new method that we'll create that's going to be named save data. And then we can use this in our save and our save as. And after we're done, we'll display a message. I have to do some fancy string dot formatting here, don't I? So I want this to be formatted where it says data saved in file and then the file name. So I'll use string dot format to create that string and save it in our message so that it can display that information for us. So our save data method, I'm going to put inside this file maintenance region. So I'm going to create this new method. Now our save data method is going to start out with our stream writer, and we need to make sure we have the appropriate using clauses for that. We do have system.io. So I should be able to allocate a stream writer. And we want that stream writer to be using our file name that we were given. Now, once we've allocated that writer, we're ready to write out information to our file. So can we do a for each? And in our for each, we're going to use that var data type again, saying that it's an object. For each var, which will actually be a load in our list box, loads items list. Remember, our for each process is a collection, and our items list is a collection, just basically an array. Now, for each of the items that are in that list, we would like to write them out to our out file. I think that we're going to do this a little bit differently, though. Instead of just taking that load directly, we're going to allocate a load variable. Cast that var data type to our load, and then we're going to use that load variable. Why? Because I want to use that object reference and not just this variable reference from our list box. And that is because I think that we might need to format things a little differently when we're writing to our output file than when we're writing to our list box. So we might want to convert this to use a different method. So whenever we use our object, we're giving ourselves more capabilities, but it would have been the same kind of output. Now, once we're done processing each of those items, we should be able to close our output file. And of course, within all of this, I need to put a try catch. So now I'm going to enclose all of that file processing within our try. And if we catch any sort of exception, let's save it as an exception object exe, and we'll set our message equal to that exception message so that we can see what happened. that should take care of us. We're opening our file for each of the items in our list. We're allocating them as a load, and then we're writing them to our output file. Is that all we need to do to save our data? Let's try it. I'm going to put a comment here first. So we're going to take each of those rows and output them as a record in our file. Nice, looks really good. When we get back then from our save data, we had the correct message here in our save as. What's interesting is we can go ahead and implement our save now also if our file name that we've been working with is not valid. What did we set that to when we started here? Yep, 2 double quotes. So that's what we're going to check to see if it is. If it's 2 double quotes, they've never told us what file name they want to use. So in that case, we're going to need to use the save as function. And we probably want to take this out of the event that we're calling from our menu. So I'm going to create another new method here. It's going to be call save dialog, and that's all it's going to do. So I'm going to copy these few lines of code, or actually cut them, and paste them in our new method, and then we can call that. So if somebody clicks save as, we're going to call our save dialog, which shows that save dialog box, to get a file name. And if that they do that properly, we're going to call save data, which is going to try to process that file. And then we're going to give them a nice message about how great it is that it's working. Let's try it. Are you thinking of all sorts of error possibilities? I hope so. I'm going to add some things here. Okay, I have 2 records now. So now I should be able to save this file. I haven't accessed a file name yet. Oh, and all I'm getting is my file saved. Did I test prematurely? I sure did. Look at that, that wasn't what I wanted. So let's fix that. In our file save, if our file name is empty, we're going to call that new method that shows that save dialog box to our user. Then we're going to call save data either way. And finally, we'll update with another message. I'm going to make it look just like this one. Looks great. Now let's try this. I love typing in these data entry items for us for testing. Add another one. Okay, so let's save. There's our save as dialog box. Awesome. I'm sitting in my documents folder. That's great. I like that. I don't know what kind of type this thing is going to be saved as. Let's type in load 1. It's going to be in my documents folder. So here's how that file was saved. load 1. Now I'm going to close out of our application and go to that folder. Where's my documents? Come on, come on. Could tell I have it really mad. There it is. Let's open it. It's like, what should I do with it? You didn't give it a file type. Well, let's look at that in Notepad, because that should work. And here my file looks fine. Everything is great. So I think I'm ready to write the process to read in a file. I'd like to validate this one first, though, before I move on to do that. I'm going to create comments. We're going to ask them for that. We have our output set up. Everything looks beautiful. Okay, here's our save data routine. Remember, we have it enclosed within a try catch so that we can catch any sort of errors that have to do with our file system. We allocate our output file. Then we go into a for each loop where we get each item out of our list, convert it back into a load object, and write that load object out to a file. When we're all done processing, we close it, and we have our exception message. In our menu items, File Save As and File Save, we were able to just use those new methods to quickly and effectively create our output file. So no drama, no trauma. So that has us writing some output. I think that our last thing is going to be reading it in. That'll be our next video. Thank you.